Hello YouTube and welcome to Captaincrazyhat's Game Room. I'm Captaincrazyhat and today we'll be taking a look at Dungeons of Dredmor. I'm going to just breeze through the customization options because someone could easily spend hours going into detail about all the possible class combinations. But I will say that this is a game that really lets you play pretty much in any way that fits your playstyle. The selection is fairly evenly split between Rogue, Warrior, and Magic type classes. I generally find the style I prefer is more of a warrior with some magical abilities. The gameplay style is that of a fairly typical dungeon crawler, where you use your left mouse button to attack with a melee weapon and your right mouse button for ranged weaponry and spells. Your movement can be controlled by clicking on a space to move to it or with the WASD keys. The click to move portion, however, can sometimes clash with combat controls if you're trying to cast a spell or something and you instead end up walking over to a monster that you're trying to fight at range. While the gameplay is fairly repetitive, it never really gets boring because there's always an element of surprise when you open every door because you don't know what's going to pop out. The difficulty increases at a good rate between levels, which generally forces you to seek out the monster zoo for each level because you really need the experience that you get from killing all the monsters, despite that it would be much easier to simply bypass them. Also, you'll need to explore all the floors in order to find all the possible items because everything has some kind of use. Graphically, the game looks good, and everything fits what the developers are trying to get across. Everything has a sort of tongue-in-cheek humor, and it references everything from the Dead Alewise's Watchtower D&D skit to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster as an in-game item. Now, I'd like to talk about my complaints with the game. Firstly, unless you play the tutorial, you will probably die very quickly and not be able to figure things out. That being said, however, the tutorial is very good, and you will know what you're doing by the end. The biggest gripe, though, with the game is that there are just flaws with the user interface. For instance, looking at the items, if you save your game and quit and come back to the game, then the items don't stack right. Like, you can't stack items on top of previous stacks of items you had in your inventory. For example, if you were to make mana potions, and you already had some in your inventory, and you couldn't stack them up together. But the solution I found for this is to break the stack apart and take every individual potion and stack them on top of the new stack. And all of them will stack except for the bottom potion, which you're either going to have to consume or throw away because it won't ever stack with anything ever again for some odd reason. The next problem I have is dealing with the doors. When you try and open them, sometimes your character will just walk back and forth and not actually open the door because you need to click on the specific part of the door, and that can be annoying. Also, when trying to make offerings to the Loot Fist statue god thing, you sometimes run into the problem that you can keep trying to drop Loot Fisk onto the statue, but it never actually takes it, and then you have to walk to the side of it and keep dropping it in, and eventually it'll take the Loot Fisk, but I've had to try several times in order to actually be able to successfully do that. And yeah, while these flaws are annoying, they don't actually detract that much from the gameplay. Now I'd like to show a clip briefly which shows what a monster zoo looks like while I rate the game. Basically, you end up opening a door on every level from floor 2 down, and there'll be a room that's full of monsters. And you need to kill all the monsters in there. In this one, there happen to be close to 100 monsters or so. A small counter is actually shown right below the minimap to tell you how many monsters are left in the room, which is extremely useful. Now, of course, it's time to say what I think of this game. How I rate a game is I look at how much I enjoyed the game compared to how much I spent on it. And for my reviews, the rating system will be as follows. A is for games that I felt are really good and worth the money I spent on it. B is for games that are pretty good, but just not one of those must-have games. C games are just average. D is for games I really didn't find to be very good, or that they could have been much better because of problems I'd experienced, such as major game glitches or other such things. F is for games that I would avoid like the Black Death, because there are few or no redeeming qualities about it. As for Dungeons of Dredmor, I'd have to give it an A, because the gameplay is very fun and addicting, and the fact that it's available on Steam for just $4.99. And personally, I put over 33 hours into it, and I have yet to beat the game. but I keep coming back because it's fun. Yeah, it's really hard, but it's really enjoyable to play. The game does have bugs and interface issues, but they don't really distract from gameplay to the point that I would tell anyone not to get this game. Anyway, that's my review of Dungeons of Dredmor. Thank you all for watching.